60 Minutes with Angela starts right now.
In all probability,
yes,
Yinusa and Ese will ultimately get married, legitimately or illegitimately. I'm telling you,
yes,
in spite of the noise. Of course, it is safer for their images. Okay, who is going to go and marry Ese now? Yes, I know there will be so many Bayelsa man, but then that negative press will follow her forever.
Well, hello and welcome. This is 60 Minutes with me, Angela Ajitumobi. Thank you for joining me on the program today. Now, my host today is the National Missioner of the Ansarudeen Society of Nigeria. I assume you've all been following the case of Ese Oruru, who's an Urobo girl, originally from Delta State, but lives with her family in Bayelsa State. That's in the south-south geopolitical zone of Nigeria. The case of Ese Oruru made the news when it was alleged that she was abducted, taken to Kano State by Kano State indigene Yinusa, aka Yellow. And parents of Ese cried out to Nigerians, civil society groups, and the government to help them rescue their daughter, whom they alleged had been abducted. This case has resulted in polarizing Christians and Muslims here in Nigeria, and some prominent Nigerians, Professor Wole Soyinka, Femi Falana, senior advocate of Nigeria, saying no one should read religious meanings into this case. It is a case of ordinary criminality. So, join me after the break as I count down 60 minutes with Imam Abdulrahman Ahmad, National Missioner of the Ansarudeen Society here in Nigeria. Welcome back. Welcome, Imam. Thank you very much for coming on the program.
It's my pleasure.
All right, so I thought we should just start from here. You know, some people have said this is a case of pure elopement, that these two people, one Ese Oruru, who's 14 years old, the girl, and Yinusa, who's alleged to be 18 years old, the boy, they were in love and they eloped to get married. So I suppose my first question is, does Islam recognize elopement carried out on the basis of love?
My answer is no. Straight no. Let me tell you what Islam is and what Islam is not. First and foremost, Islam does not recognize elopement because marriage is one of the most sacred institutions in Islam. This follows from the fact that Islam takes the family unit as the nucleus of the society, the most important unit of the society, and it holds that if the society is healthy, is sane, is properly organized, we will have a sane society, a progressive society, a very harmonious society. Islam goes further to even regard crime against the family unit as crime against humanity, because this is where human beings are formed. This is where society derives its stability, its essence, and the core of its values. So, talking about a family, Islam does not take it with levity at all.
Right.
So families must be properly constituted.
So there are clear rules. For
clear
constituting
rules
a
for
family.
constituting a family,
Right.
clear rules for marriage, clear rules for the web of domestic relations.
Right.
So there are clear rules. So elopement, unfortunately, elopement is antithetical to the Islamic spirit's understanding and legislation of the family.
Right. Having cleared that, will Islam also recognize a forced conversion of a minor? Let's start with an adult. Will Islam recognize the forced conversion of an adult from Christianity to Islam?
In all honesty, each time this question is posed, I feel embarrassed, terribly embarrassed for the question itself.
Yes.
I believe this is fairly straightforward. Faith is about conviction.
Yes.
You cannot force conviction on anyone. And as far as Islam is concerned, compulsion is incompatible with conviction. Conviction is deep from within. What I believe, what I live, what I want to be, where I want to go. You can force me to think this way.
Yes.
And besides, Islam had been very categorical in the verse of the Quran about conviction. Islam and the Quran says, let there be no compulsion in religion. You cannot compel me to believe. It is faith. I mean, because I'm expected to live my faith in the privacy of my room as much as I live it in public. So you cannot compel me,
Yes.
to practice something I'm really not convinced about, even in public.
So we've cleared those two things. We've all been following the details of this story. Will the forced conversion or alleged forced conversion of Ese, will it stand in Islam?
That's why I say I'm embarrassed, very much embarrassed. Not because of Yinusa and
Yes.
Ese,
Yes.
but because the institution of journalism in Nigeria is so robust that I do not expect practitioners to sink so low
Yes.
as to even pose this question. As a woman of substance, nobody can compel you to believe in something about which you're not convinced
About.
I wonder how we got to this point. Why will anybody talk about forced conversion? It is nonsensical, very absolutely nonsensical. I don't even like to answer the question because it is a no question at all.
Right.
I am saying, and I've stated, that naturally, forget about religion. The best you could make of people, if you want to compel them, is to make them hypocrites or pretenders. And all religion is against hypocrisy and pretension.
Yes.
So what are we talking about? It is inhuman, it is irrational, it is not reasonable, and it is absolutely irreligious.
Right.
Now we regard Ese as a minor. He is too young. In the circumstance, if it is exactly the way it is described.
Yes.
Because everything is allegation.
Yes.
And
I suppose that's why you said until you hear from Yinusa.
Exactly. Everything is allegation. How do you convict someone that you have not spoken to?
Yes.
We have the regular courts of law that will take evidence, that will follow due judicial process and determine whether someone is guilty or not guilty. Everyone is presumed innocent until proved guilty.
Yes.
I am not in a position to determine whether things that were being alleged actually took place, or there is a lot of coloration because of the prevailing political situation in the country.
So let's look at it this way now. If a marriage was to happen with a Muslim 13-year-old girl, what is the right procedure? Will her parents be involved? Is it a betrothal or is it a real marriage? I think a lot of people need to understand what goes on.
Let me tell you that Islam gives so much right and freedom to the girl.
Really?
So much right that without her consent, the marriage remains invalid to start with. I am telling you,
without her consent?
Without her consent, even in situations where her parents have consented to it.
Even if she's an adult.
Even if she's an adult, she has to be able to consent willingly. Now, if we assume that she's a minor, then a minor under the Sharia cannot consent because she is not of age. That is why in situations where there is a miscarriage,
Yes.
maybe there is a betrothal, of a minor, Islam holds that when she grows up, there is what in Islamic law is called bulugul ikhtiyar. Now, bulugul ikhtiyar means option of puberty. That is, on attaining the age of majority, she has a right to repudiate it. That
Really?
is clearly written in our laws. We're dealing with compound ignorance.
Imam, you're saying
I
that
can restate that many times over.
a 13-year-old is betrothed to
Yes.
a Muslim man,
Yes.
and then when she attains this bulugh, age maturity measured by menstruation,
Yes.
she can still come back and
And
say no.
repudiate no. And say, I don't like this man. I am not going to continue
This marriage
or this betrothal. Because it is at that point that the marriage is expected to be consummated.
Right.
And before the consummation, the girl in question has the option of repudiating it, and it is her right, and the judge will validate that right as far as Islamic law is concerned. Now let us talk about the case of Ese.
Yes.
Now
She's a Christian.
she's
minor.
a Christian, she's a minor. What the media is making us to believe is that her parents are not in tune with everything that is happening, and that, they allege abduction.
Yes.
Now, let me tell you clearly, even a girl, even when she's of age, cannot unilaterally marry herself off. Now, marriage
Even
is,
an adult
even
girl.
an adult girl,
Muslim girl.
yes, cannot on her own marry herself off, because in Islam, marriage is as much a union between two people as it is between two families.
Right.
And marriage is a means for building inter-family alliance. So it is not just between two people who are infatuated, which is what I see clearly in this case.
Yes.
If we agree that Yinusa is an adolescent,
Yes.
I see it as an adolescent incredulity. This happens every day.
Yes.
It happens
All
everywhere.
over the world.
Young people, very energetic, very raw, and in most cases very stupid. That's what has really happened. So I am telling you that as far as the case of both of them are concerned, there was no marriage.
Who conducts an Islamic marriage?
Well, first, there is no evidence that anybody had married them. So
That's
far.
where you knew that I was going there.
There has, even in the media to date, there is no evidence that anybody had married them.
And no one will marry them from
And
the
no
Islamic
one
community.
will marry them, because for them to be married,
Yeah.
I will tell you there are 4 conditions for a valid marriage. Number 1, it is offer and acceptance. In Islam, offer and acceptance
The
can
man
be both
offers
ways.
marriage to the
or
girl.
the young lady offers. It works both ways in Islam. So there must be offer and acceptance. Now that is the first step. The second step is there must be a responsible person who is permitting, who is consenting, aside from the fundamental consent of the lady.
Yes.
In this case, it is the lady's father, or in the absence of the father, the person that has legal entitlement
In
to
local
represent,
parentis.
that is it, to represent the father and give consent. This is the second fundamental.
Right.
There is a third fundamental, and that third fundamental is misunderstood, and that is the lady involved has the right to ask the man to demonstrate financial capability and responsibility.
Really?
That is what in the language of the Sharia is called the mahar. The mahar, we can translate it as dowry, but it's not exactly dowry.
Right.
And how
Just
does
to
it
show your
work?
capability.
How does it work? I will tell you. It is the lady says to the man, "So you are man enough to marry me?" He said, "Yes." "Okay, let's see how that works. Okay, can you give me $1 million to show your capability and responsibility. If the man doesn't have $1 million, he begins to negotiate. So, ab initio, they are partners. Partners, they are supposed to be taking decision after consultation. They haggle, and the lady says, well, I can go below this. Sir, please now, please, just...
I like you.
Yeah, and whatever they agree,
Yes.
becomes binding. The man must pay. That is what is mad. Is without prejudice to what both families exchange in terms of gift, in terms of whatever.
Yes.
It stands alone, mahar, and it's a third fundamental. And the fourth fundamental is that there must be two witnesses.
Must they be family related?
Preferably family related. You know that there is the representative of the family.
Yes.
Already there.
Yes.
Without that, marriage cannot be solemnized. So there are safeguards
Yes.
that will not permit the kind of abuse that some people accusing Islam as a religion of. Pity their ignorance, but some of them are really not ignorant. They are really very mischievous. Because if you do not know about something, you ask. And we're in a world that access to information has become easier. Go on the internet, search what are the conditions for a valid marriage in Islam.
Yes.
And you get tons and tons of information that you cannot exhaust.
There are a lot of things you've said that have shocked me.
Yeah.
First of all, that even in the event of of marriage to an adult female, she needs the parents, she needs to consent.
That's right.
An adult female?
An adult female, yes. The reason is that, the family is not just the union between...
Of one man and woman.
You're bringing entire families together.
Yes.
And you're strengthening the bond. They are becoming related as a result of the marriage.
Yes. So, in other words, a Muslim bride, whether she's a minor or an adult, can't give herself away.
No, she cannot.
Never.
She cannot give herself away.
If a Muslim man is marrying a Christian girl, not a minor now, an adult Christian girl, the same rules apply.
The same rules apply. You cannot, because she is a Christian,
just
dispense of the consent of her parents.
Yes.
They remain her parents. And don't forget, you have chosen to integrate both families.
Yes.
Marriage does not intend to make them enemies or to make them hate to one another.
Yes.
It is meant to bring them closer to one another. And if you want to join me with a family, I have to know that family, I have to like that family, I have to be willing to be part of that family. That is the essence of the marriage. So the fact that there is difference of religion has not nullified the condition of the consent of a parent.
Join us again after the break.
Nice question.
Angela, that's a great question.
It's a good question.
It is difficult to respond to that question.
That is a serious question. Angela, that is a very great question. Great question, Angela.
Angela, that's a very difficult question.
That's a great question, Angela.
Okay, that's a great question.
Angela, that's a tough one for me.
That's a good question. Good question.
I love to ask questions. I think it's what I do best. You see, I think that the fastest way to learn anything is to ask questions. The right questions, that is. Questions that help you get to the heart of the matter.
60 Minutes with Angela. Again, answers to every question you always wanted to ask.
So what is 60 Minutes with Angela all about? It's not an interview. I like to think it's a conversation between two people making the news, people who are in the news, and those who become the news. And the whole idea is to inform, to educate, or to clarify, as the case may be. It is an art getting people to answer the questions that everyone is thinking in their minds. And that's what we try to do on 60 Minutes with Angela. I ask all the questions that everyone's thinking about and no one wants to voice. All the questions you always wanted to ask, you get those answers on 60 Minutes with Angela. Every week on this station, 60 Minutes with Angela, getting answers to every question you always wanted to ask. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, it's 60 Minutes with me, Angela Ajitumobi. On my hot seat today, the National Missioner of the Ansarudeen Society of Nigeria, Imam Abdulrahman Ahmad. Now, Imam, you know, I was thinking, how then do we rationalize if we know all these facts about Islam? It appeared to me, reading the story, that Yinusa felt that Ese, having been converted to Islam, there was nothing wrong with him conducting a marriage, an alleged marriage with her, because I have to use the word alleged. No one would marry them. But he seemed to think that once she was converted, everything was okay. Was that just sheer criminality?
Well, again, until we validate that with Yinusa, we will not know how his mind is working. What I'm sure of from my modest knowledge of Islamic law,
yes,
is that even conversion
has a process.
You know, has a process, and I believe that the case of Yinusa and Ese has nothing to do with religion, has nothing to do with ethnicity. It is an everyday problem among young people, and I don't think we should blow it out of proportion.
Right.
I'm happy to give education to our viewers, but I do not agree that the case is religious by any stretch of imagination, or it has any ethnic underpinning. It happens and we should accept. But for the purpose of education, I want to reiterate the fact that marriage is not just a union between two people, it is also a union between two families. In some cases, it is even a union between two different, groups of people.
Yes.
Two different ethnic groups. It happens in Islam, it happens in African culture, it happens everywhere, it happens even in English culture.
So let's talk about the conversion, or the alleged conversion. One of the reports I read said the Sharia Council helped or aided in the conversion to Islam. So can Ese, being a minor, determine that I want to be a Muslim and she would be converted?
Now, I believe here we're mixing issues.
Yes.
And I want us to be able to separate it so that we'll be able to put a straight case.
Yes.
How did the Sharia Council in Kano come into the picture?
Story. Yes.
And Nigerians have not seen the media commending the parent of Yinusa. They have been very, very forthright. Their son brought home a girl. They did not connive with him. The father reported to the village head,
yes,
that, look, I think my son has committed a crime and this is going to bring trouble. The highest authority within the village was the village head. The village head felt, look, this is more than me.
Yes.
And then reported to the district head. The district head, being educated, and because perhaps he felt that this could have
grave
consequences,
yes,
took it to the Emir of Kano. In Kano, this whole thing was set in the village.
Not in Kano.
Not in Kano town. It was set in Kura village, so many kilometers from Kano.
Away from Kano.
And the village head, the district head, Yinusa, the girl, Yinusa's parents went to Kano to report.
To the Emir.
To the Emir, this is what is happening. The Emir is not an everyday person.
He's an Islamic scholar.
Aside from the Emir of Kano being the Emir of Kano, one of the most respected traditional rulers in this country,
yes,
he is also an Islamic scholar in his own right, not by attribution,
yes,
but by scholarship. Now, because he felt, well, let some people investigate this matter and report to me, I can act on the report, he referred it to the Sharia Council, who made a written report to his office. It was that report that gave him the opportunity to rule. What was his ruling? His ruling was, look, take this girl back home. She is too young to consent to anything.
So when all those people are alleging that she was hidden in the Emir's palace,
they are mischievous, and that's why I'm very angry with the Nigerian press, for being an accomplice to this criminality. Now, journalism is noble,
yes,
and facts are sacred. Whatever happens to investigative journalism? I mean, I don't know how this has passed through the sub-desk of so many newspapers.
Yes, and made it to the front page.
I made it to the front page. I see nothing in all this but yellow journalism. Yellow journalism, that is the color of the journalism that appears to be dominant in this country now, because the facts were not verified. The Emir of Kano is respectable. The palace of the Emir of Kano is not a junkyard.
And some people are saying that after the Emir gave that instruction, perhaps he should have followed up to make sure that
that would be unfair to the Emir. Very, very, very unfair to the Emir. Let me tell you that the Emir referred the matter to the appropriate authority, the police. The Emir did not act as a judge in the case.
Yes.
He acted as an arbitrator to douse tension, to resolve potential conflict, and handed the matter over to the police.
So the police should have made sure.
That is where people should point fingers, not to impugn on the personality of the Emir of Kano. It is reckless, it is irresponsible, it is un-Nigerian, it is un-African.
Let's talk about Professor Ishaq Akintola now, the Muslim rights concern, Morik, who said in response to this that Islam has no age barrier in marriage. But I know about betrothals. So does Islam have age barrier for sex?
Now let me tell you this. There are two things: the age of maturity and the age of adulthood.
Right.
Now, the age of maturity is biological. No one controls this. And it varies from clime to clime. And from time to time. I am sure it is not strange today if you hear that a 9-10-year-old child has started menstruating. It's nothing. It happens.
It's the jet age.
Yes, and nobody can deny that. Now, but aside from the age of maturity, there is also the age of adulthood, you know, which is determined from time to time by societies. It is a dynamic thing. There are so many things that are considered before a society. In the US today, 18 is not universal. There are states where 16 is
adulthood.
Adulthood. So there is nothing sacrosanct about it, and people should be very, very careful. And nothing says that this cannot be reviewed tomorrow. Now, but let me tell you what Islam says. In terms of holding anybody responsible, the cutoff in Islam is the age of maturity for a boy and for a girl. As soon as a girl begins to menstruate, Islam expects that the girl should obey all the rules from which she had been excused. Like prayer becomes compulsory on her, fasting becomes compulsory on her, and so on and so forth. For a male and for a female.
Right.
Now, as for the age of marriage, Islam has left these to individuals and societies concerned.
In other words, Islam recognizes the constitution, is what you're saying.
Now, I can say that 18 appears to be the consensus in Nigeria. But Islam, sometimes you have conflict. And just like you have it with religion, you have it also with culture. What I detest is to portray Islam as the only violator. Of course, if you're from the south-south or the southeast, you know this happens a great deal. As it happens in the north, as it happens everywhere in this country. So, if we're going to deal with that problem, we're going to deal with a general problem. It is not with a problem that Islam has created or that Christianity has created.
It's not peculiar to any religion.
It's not peculiar to any religion. It's not peculiar to any ethnic group. Of course, in the Bible, what is the age of marriage? At what age was Mary married to Joseph the carpenter? So we must be very, very careful when we make statements, sweeping statements, to paint a religion black or to tarnish a particular section of the country.
In other words, what you're saying, if I understand you very well, is that child marriage or any man
let me clarify it. In marriage, Islam attaches paramount to the interests of the girl.
Of the girl.
Of the girl. That is the reason she is the one consenting. Without her consent, there would be no marriage. That's number one.
Yes.
Number two, anything that is proved under the Sharia to be inimical to the social, economic, emotional, or physical interests, physical health of the girl is also rejected by Islam. So, if it is proved that to get married to a young girl of 9
yes,
will be injurious to her health, then Islam will not support it.
I mean, but all those girls we hear of in the north who suffer from VVF.
VVF is not only in the north, it's in Akwa Ibom. Yes, VVF is not only in the north.
So you're right, that these things go on all over.
Oh yes. VVF is in Akwa Ibom. VVF is
in the southeast.
In the southeast, is in the south. VVF sometimes is exacerbated by cultural practices of female genital cutting.
Circumcision of girls.
It's a whole lot of issues, and it's very easy, especially when it is yellow journalism.
Yes.
We really must protect the interests of the girl. And we will not go far if we want to blame religion. We want to blame ethnicity for this.
Join us again after the break.
Nice question.
Angela, that's a great question.
It's a good question.
It is difficult to respond to that question.
That is a serious question.
Angela, that is a very great question.
Great question, Angela.
Angela, that's a very difficult question.
That's a great question, Angela.
Okay, that's a great question.
Angela, that's a tough one for me.
That's a good question. Good question.
I love to ask questions. I think it's what I do best. You see, I think that the fastest way to learn anything is to ask questions. The right questions, that is. Questions that help you get to the heart of the matter.
60 Minutes with Angela. Again, answers to every question you always wanted to ask.
So what is 60 Minutes with Angela all about? It's not an interview. I like to think it's a conversation between two people making the news, people who are in the news, and those who become the news. And the whole idea is to inform, to educate, or to clarify, as the case may be. It is an art getting people to answer the questions that everyone is thinking in their minds. And that's what we try to do on 60 Minutes with Angela. I ask all the questions that everyone's thinking about and no one wants to voice. All the questions you always wanted to ask. You get those answers on 60 Minutes with Angela every week on this station. 60 Minutes with Angela, getting answers to every question you always wanted to ask. Welcome back. My concluding moments now with Imam Abdulrahman Ahmad, National Missioner of the Ansaruddin Society here in Nigeria. Now, Imam, I just want to read to you what President Kamil Bolarinwa of NASFAT said. Many Muslim leaders have not risen as one to challenge the mindset that terrorists are often wrongly tagged Muslims and condemn terrorism perpetrated by groups of psychopaths masquerading as Muslims. End of quote. Do you agree that the silence of many leaders, Islamic leaders, on terrorist activities in some areas of Nigeria is a way of supporting these perpetrators unintentionally?
Well, I don't agree at all. And I will explain. You see, the FBI statistics,
yes,
and I'm sure most of us are very familiar with the statistics, said 80% of terrorist acts, are carried out within the United States, are carried out by non-Muslims.
80%.
80%, or more than 80%. That's what the CIA report actually said, FBI report. And only about 20% or less actually carried out by Muslims. These statistics, I didn't make it up.
Yes.
So, Some people have said, yes, every Muslim may not be a terrorist, but every terrorist is a Muslim.
Yes.
This is standing truth on its head. Now, Muslim leaders do not even get a good press. You know,
Yes.
as a broadcaster, it's bad news all the time. And of course, the
Bad
Muslims
news sells.
But that's what sells, and the media houses also wants to make profit.
Yes.
So banner headline, bad news. That's what sells. Good news from good guys. Good, but then you will not sell newspapers. You know,
Yes.
you cannot create suspense from good news. It's only bad news. Another bomb blast. Another imminent terrorist attack.
Yes.
That's what sells news. Unfortunately, it is bad. Now, I'm saying Muslim leaders are speaking up, but they do not get the kind of press.
Exposure.
The kind of press that bad news gets. And that is what is happening, because I know that every Friday in many mosques across the country, people condemn terrorism. They do not make it to any news at all. Now, in the northeastern part of this country,
Yes.
the Muslim scholars are the worst victims. Most of them have been murdered in cold blood.
By Boko Haram.
By Boko Haram. The same reason, you know, for which Muslims are tagged, you know, terrorists and painted in lurid colors.
Yes.
I'm a member of the Nigerian Interreligious Council. Our Christian counterparts would often accuse us that we're not doing enough to condemn terrorism. It is wicked. How else? The Sultan has spoken, who is the President General of the Nigerian Supreme Council for Islamic Affairs. So many Muslim scholars have spoken against terrorism in this country, outside of this country. What else are we supposed to do? And of course, these Muslim leaders are the soft targets of terrorists. A lot of them have been murdered with their families in cold blood, in Zaria, in Kano, in Maiduguri, in Bauchi, everywhere. Now, even this dastardly act of terrorism perpetrated against them has never made headline.
Do you think people hate Islam? It looks like...
I don't think people hate Islam. I think people are misinformed about Islam. And it is a deliberate act. But Islam is not the first. I remember in our younger days,
Yes.
communism, which holds a lot of fascination for us,
Yes.
in our student days in the university, it was regarded as something, you know, almost evil. It is the non-conformists that are the Marxists, the communists, and so on and so forth. Even Christianity at a point was regarded as such.
Yes.
By the pagans in the Roman Empire. That's why they're named Christians. So it is a phase, and of course it has something to do with the New World Order.
Yes.
And that's a topic for
another
day. But I don't think people hate Muslims. I know you don't hate me. Neither do I hate you. But you really accept it has to do with Islam,
yes.
and you want clarification, and you want to put me on the hot seat like this,
yes.
You really invite a Muslim scholar to come and contribute to matters of the moment. No, don't touch him.
No.
No, if it's not you,
yes.
You know that in the industry, that's almost the standard.
So let's come back to the matter of Ese now. I just wanted your bit on the terrorism thing. Professor Shoyinka says that as long as Senator Ahmed Yerima, the former governor of Zamfara State, is not prosecuted for marrying an Egyptian 13-year-old, we will continue to see things like this. What is your reaction to that?
Professor Wole Soyinka is entitled to his opinion. He could look at issues from his own perspective and is entitled to it. Senator Ahmed Yerima is not representing Islam. He's representing himself. He's answering his own name. The recent abduction in Ikorodu was led by a pastor.
Yes.
Nobody is blaming Christianity for it. In fact, the press is smart by calling the leader fake pastor.
Yes.
Who determines who is fake and who is not fake? So, if this pastor who led an abduction, a kidnap,
is fake,
yes, and his action is not a reflection of the teachings of Christianity, then why will that of Ahmed Yerima be a reflection of the teachings of Islam.
Because the
All right?
teachings of Islam, you've explained, are very
Yes,
clear.
yes. And there are so many people, some people have done, gone running in the past, nothing has happened to them.
Yes.
And would we say that that is the reason that militancy and insurgency? No, I hate impunity.
Yes.
So I'm not in support of any form of impunity.
Do you support that Yinusa should be prosecuted? He's been charged with criminal abduction, illicit sex, sexual exploitation, and unlawful carnal knowledge.
Very honestly, if you ask me, Yinusa had been tried and convicted already. All right?
Before court.
Yes, he has already been tried and convicted, and I can even tell you sentenced. So the process that is ongoing now appears to be just a validation of that. Now, what is the quality of legal representation that Yinusa has right now?
Yes.
Because the preponderance, public opinion is already swayed.
Yes. And then he's been tried in Bayelsa.
He's been tried in Bayelsa. I don't know how many senior advocates of Nigeria are representing him. I don't know. In fact, I've not seen one favorable write-up in his defense so far. And this is what happens. It's really how many people are involved in this. People come from the south, southeast. They bring their younger ones. At the end of the day, the guy in the house will open the skirt.
Yes.
And before you know what is happening, nobody has dramatized. Nobody has dramatized it. Everyday brutality is being perpetrated. Rape.
Yes.
Incest. Nobody dramatized it. It's unfortunate. These are evils. Nobody should support it.
Yes.
But how fair are we as a people to Yinusa? Both of them have committed crime, if you ask me. And it is only Yinusa. I am not holding brief for him.
Yes.
No, very far from it. But already there is a bias, which is most unfortunate.
Now, if the parents of a girl in a Muslim marriage object, can the marriage still go on?
In some cases, yes, it can go on.
If the girl still wants it?
Now, I'll tell you, but there is a proper process. It is not just up to the girl or up to the boy. They will have to send emissaries to make entreaties to the parents of the girl. Now, after some times, the stakeholders, like the leaders of the community,
yes,
the imam, the judge, can intervene and examine the reason for the objection. If the reason is found to be acceptable, cogent, solid, then there is nothing. But if, for instance, the reason is, we're very pretty people in our family, but this young man is ugly.
He's not handsome.
He's not handsome. So how can we? That is not a reason. And the leaders of the community can overrule the objection in the interests of the lady. Now, it is only in this case that marriage can go on without the consent of the parents of the girl.
Right.
But this is not even encouraged. It is only in extreme cases. Again, remember that marriage is not just the coming together of two people,
yes,
but families. It is only in circumstances like this that, of course, compare this to what is happening in the West. Even under the Marriage Act, you do not require the consent of any parent.
That's what is surprising. A
It's
boy
not-
and a
you do
girl
not-
meet
yes.
and they're of age, they get married.
You do not require, but Islam says no. It is not just the two of you. You're bringing a whole family into it. So let them be part of it. Let them consent because you need them.
Okay, going forward now, can it be rectified? Even though there's been all these brouhaha, can Ese still legitimately become Muslim? Can herself and Yinusa still get married if all these conditions are fulfilled?
I am not a seer, but in all probability,
yes,
Yinusa and Ese will ultimately get married, legitimately or illegitimately. I'm telling you,
yes,
in spite of the noise. We have not considered the interest of Ese and the negative publicity around all of this. We're blinded by hate.
especially if she is really pregnant.
So what happens to her? It is bad press for her. She's been labeled. We're not considering that.
Would Islam accept that child as legitimate without a nikah ceremony performed?
Well, that's a whole lot of discussion. Islam wants every pregnancy to be within marriage.
Right.
Now, if it is established, like, it seems that there was no marriage, so they had extramarital affair, and the Islam holds the child innocent because he played no part in it.
The sin, yes.
But, hold both of them culpable.
Can they wipe away that sin with a subsequent marriage?
Well, they could get married legitimately, but they can reverse the pregnancy.
Yes.
They can reverse the...
They can't reverse the fact that the pregnancy happened outside.
No, that cannot be reversed. So, but you see, nobody should play God.
Yes.
God is merciful. You could decide to forgive them.
We
should not play God.
We don't know
But
that.
as far as Islamic law is concerned, that is not acceptable. I don't know whether you get the distinction that I try. They could get married, and even it is better for them to get married. Of course, it is safer for their images. Okay, who is going to go and marry Ese now? Yes, I know there will be so many Bayelsa man, but then that negative press will follow her forever. Now, if the child survives, the child belongs to Yinusa legitimately.
Yes.
Now, what happens? The child is torn between
two religions and two tribes.
Yes, that would have ordinarily it would have been manageable. But the child is torn between hate, and lies. So, who is the child to support? To support her mother and hate her father for having abducted his or her mother. I mean, we must see beyond. That's why I said we are unwittingly committing even a crime against family by pretending to protect the interest of Ese.
Thank you very much, Imam Abdulrahman Ahmad, for coming on the program.
It's my pleasure.
And thank you for watching. I'm Angela Jitumobi.